So could Dr. Kristen Tugman please come up? Sergeant Dakota Meyer, please come up. Chris Krieger, please come up. And David Riley, please come up. How are you? Hello again. It's an honor to have you back. Thanks so much.
Toss cake up here. Is this cake yours?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Not mine.
For you?
Everyone looked hungry.
That's for you right here.
No, not me.
Oh yeah, that's all you right here.
I'm good.
Well, Dakota, why don't you come up? David will be on the end. And again, I'd like to invite James Beamisdorfer up here. Prudential has been such a good partner with this and doing so much, so we wanted to hear about some of the additional programs. So if you wouldn't mind James coming up. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here today. This morning we heard from Rutgers about them being an anchor institution here in Newark, and I'd like to think that Prudential is very much an anchor company here in Newark. If you think about the renaissance, if you will, of Newark, we've played a pretty significant role in that. And part of what we do as a company is we look to improve the communities in which we live and work, and obviously Newark is one of those. But the military community is another one of those communities in which we live and work, and that we want to be an anchor institution. And in 2010, we formalized a lot of our programs into the Office of Veterans Initiatives, team in which I now work. And our focus is on education, training, and employment opportunities for transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses. As you saw in that video earlier, one of the key partners in that process is Workforce Opportunity Services, a nonprofit organization. They have a table in the back to talk about the efforts that they do. But it's really focusing on how do we recruit, train, and then find meaningful employment opportunities for men and women who've served our country. And that includes their spouses because they serve too. And part of what we really look to do is how do we break down those barriers to employment? How do we create those opportunities where opportunities did not previously exist? How do we help the service member, how do we help the military talent understand the skills and experiences that they've had and the value that that has in the civilian workplace? And then how do we help the management of companies, the employers, how do we help them to understand the value that that military talent has and the value that that brings to their organizations? So I think that's a pretty good, I won't say anything more about all of our programs. I'm going to be here the rest of the day. I'll be happy to talk more about what we do. It all really falls back to how we can help with education, training, and meaningful employment. But I think that's a great lead-in to our panel for this afternoon, which is around military adjustment. And as we leave military service, how is it that we then find ourselves in civilian life, and what does that really mean? And how do we adjust? And how do we become part of what we were maybe before we went off to serve? So again, thank you for being here today, and I hope everybody's found this a very useful day, and we can, you know, events like this just help create awareness, and it educates people. So it's great to be here.
Thank you very much for those wonderful words. Just as always, as we've done with the other panels, just want to give a very brief introduction. I'm going to ask them to talk about their connection with military adjustment. On my immediate left, Dr. Kristen Tugman, Vice President, Customer Analytics and Consultation with Prudential Financial. Welcome. Dakota Meyer, that we've heard so much about, who needs no introduction. Chris Krieger, the co-founder of West New York Heroes. And David Riley, the immediate past National Commander of Disabled American Veterans. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now, I have to thank James. They all have cake at their place. If they're talking with their mouth full, I had to eat my cake while he was talking. So let's begin. If you could just kind of introduce yourself and talk about your connection to military adjustment.
Sure. Thank you. And I have to say I absolutely appreciate going first because I don't think I've ever been more humbled to sit on a panel So thank you for that, because I certainly don't want to follow them. I am Dr. Kristen Tugman, and I do work for Prudential. I sort of have a dual sort of expertise, I guess, and that is I'm a trained therapist as well as a vocational counselor. And so, a lot of mic problems today, huh? Yeah. And so, really, over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to focus from a mental health perspective toward helping people get back to productivity. And throughout my career, I've sort of seen us, and we all know that we fail the mental health community on a regular basis. And one of the failures that I found so profound is that we don't focus our attention on helping people get back to some level of productivity. And so that sort of led me to my career in health and productivity. So I've had the opportunity to really work with employers to help them figure out ways to build a culture that allows the opportunity for employees to feel more job satisfaction, to hopefully reduce stigma relative to mental health, although we have a really long way to go, and hopefully reduce stigma as it relates to disability in the workplace through creating things like return to work programs. And so our work actually leads us to try to understand the workforce as it evolves. And so one of the most important elements that is entering our workforce are our veterans. And so just quickly a statistic, and I know you have some, but in my view, our research was so important because what we recognize is between 2003 and 2019, we'll have 4.3 million veterans trying to enter the civilian workforce. Really important for us to recognize because in my work, it's extremely important to be able to help employers figure out how to attract and retain this highly skilled workforce, recognize that they're highly skilled, and create job satisfaction for them so that we can retain them in the workforce. And so I was so proud to be able to work for Prudential. One of the first things I was able to do was go volunteer at a winter sports clinic for disabled veterans. And that was, we met at that event, and that was 3 years ago in March in Aspen. And all I could think was, wow, we have such an opportunity here to think through the stigma that veterans face when they try to enter the workforce relative to PTSD. Because we also know that we've got 4.3 million veterans entering the workforce, but only 500,000 of them are going to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So we did a study, and what we recognized through talking with our veterans who had entered the workforce was that one of the biggest barriers for them was that they believe as they enter the workforce that everybody's going to expect them to have post-traumatic stress disorder. And they're going to, and you saw that on our video, and that they're going to look at them and say, oh, well, geez, and this was a quote, geez, don't make him mad. And so we have a lot of work to do to ensure that our workplace does not automatically assume that our veterans are broken. At the same time, we have to create a culture that allows us to accept that some of them might be, but that doesn't mean that they can't be productive members in our workplace. And so we have to think about how do we create not only the culture that accepts the idea that, yes, I might come to you and say, I need something, I need an accommodation, but how do we ensure that our workplaces create flexible work arrangements and make adjustments and make sure that whatever it is that veteran needs is accounted for, even if it's as simple as being able to work from home on occasion or accepting of a service animal in the workplace and not creating stigma relative to that, or making sure that our desk is just facing the door instead of having somebody having to have their back to the door. So we have a lot of work to do. And I mean, when I think about one of the most amazing quotes from my study was I asked the question, what was it like to transition from service member work to civilian work? And she said, it was like jumping off a diving board into freezing cold water and not knowing if I could swim. And that was absent PTSD. So we have a lot of work to do. I think Prudential does a lot of great work, and it's really about spreading the word and making sure that we continue to research and we continue to build best practices.
Wonderful, thank you. Sergeant Meyer.
Yeah, so since getting out, I've worked with Toyota and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the initiative Hiring Our Heroes. So it's been one of the big things for me as far as, I've been doing this for 6 years, as far as pushing the transition piece out. I mean, getting out of the Marine Corps and being a sniper, and then also, going through what I gone through. It's, I'll be honest, getting the job part was a tough part, and that was my main focus. And it was only probably a year ago that I actually started talking about the PTS side of it, right? I mean, I don't like the disorder because there is no disorder in PTSD, right? I mean, it's not a disorder; it's just part of life. But I mean, I could go out and I could fake it, right? I could go out and I could show up. I was still contributing to society, probably not, but the transition out's tough. I mean, the transition out is tough. I think one of the problems is on the military side, we're not preparing these people to, these service members to get out. And then on the backside of it, employers haven't understood. It's a communication problem. Employers haven't understood the value inside of these service members. Hey, listen, each year, 225,000 service members will transition out of the military. And here's what I tell employers all the time. These are the greatest that the nation has to offer. I promise you that. They're the best the nation has to offer. And, I had an employer, and this is what kind of helped me, not only my own struggles, but an employer came to me sitting in one of these panels, and he said, Dakota, well, what about PTSD? And I just put it back on him. I said, I definitely understand your concern as a business owner myself, but I said, if you're going to do it, I said, then if you're really concerned about PTSD, I said, then you screen every single one of your car wreck victims, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, your employees who've been in car wrecks are just as likely to have PTSD, even more than service members are. So if that's really what your concern is, and you understand it, then that's what you'll be focusing on. Mm-hmm. And, so that showed me that we need to educate. We have to beat this stigma. I'm not broken. I'm not broken at all. Mm-hmm. Do I have problems? I do, but everybody in this room's got problems. Right. I'm not broken. I might be injured.
Right.
So, with that, trying to educate and trying to help transition these service members is kind of been my passion the whole way. So,
excellent. Thank you, Chris.
Myself, 10 years in the Army, and I served in Bosnia and then Iraq in '03 for the initial invasion. And my vehicle took a direct hit several different times from IED. And the last one, I happened to be up in the gun. I should have never been in the gun because I was a medic. So this whole Geneva Convention thing. But our squad needed a gunner, and I was the first one. I jumped and told my lieutenant, I'm in. And, well, as quickly as I got in, I ended up out because last thing I remember seeing was a big flash and then waking up in the road. But to look at me, you wouldn't know. And people ask me all the time, and I know everyone in here has seen my...
It's a switch.
Maybe this is where I leave. Oh, there you go.
All right.
I know everyone has seen my service dog, and I've had people, and I'm not saying in here, but when I'm out and about, people will ask me all the time, hey, what's up with the dog? Why do you have a dog? You look fine. And I'm like, well, this can go one of two ways right now. Because when I'm done, I'm not going to be fine, and neither are you. So, and everyone's this stigma that it's a pit bull, and pit bulls are not service dogs. Well, moving back some, when I came back home, I was told I'd get temporary 100% service connection because I had a wife and kids and the American dream that we call it. And I was laid up, my leg in a cast. I was in rough shape and I couldn't work. And I said, okay, that's great. And we applied for my VA benefits, temporary 100%, and probably about 4 or 5 weeks later, I got a denial letter in the mail saying my injuries were not combat related, you get nothing. And the banks didn't want to hear it.
Wow.
The banks didn't want to hear it at all, so I lost it all.
Wow.
And that started the trend of my wife hating me, because if you wouldn't have went off, we'd still have our house,
right.
Our finances would be all right. It started with the whole me turning to the bottle. Everything that we do when we come back home, because in the military they teach you that if you ask for help your weak, and nobody wants to be next to a weak individual during time of war because they're going to get you killed. So you turn to the bottle. And I ended up in a polytrauma brain center in Richmond, Virginia for a while, where I spoke with other men and women who were down there. And they said, you know, funny thing, you're not alone, because the same thing happened to me. I got denied my benefits and I lost it all. So it was down there is when I knew there was something that had to be done. I didn't want to do it on a national level, so I kept it to a local level when I got back home, and I hammered the VA, the Veterans Administration, I'm going to say, not the hospital, but I hammered on the VA, and I didn't care really what their thoughts about it were, because what are you going to do to me? Send me back to Iraq? You already stripped me of the last of my dignity. Right. You took my American dream, you took my family, you turned us all upside down. My wife hated me, my kids hated me. What did I have left? Did I think suicide several times? Absolutely, I'm not going to lie. Do I still contemplate that at times? Absolutely. Especially during anniversary dates or times that are just, I know that even though I have a service dog, it still makes it rough. But we came back home and ended up with Western New York Heroes, a nonprofit that financially assists men and women who served. And if you can't afford your mortgage, your rent, or your utilities are going to be shut off, we will pay it for you up to 3 months' worth. It's grants. I didn't want to get involved in loans. I didn't want to give a loan to a fellow veteran who I know he or she can't pay it back, because if they could, why are they coming to us in the first place? So it was just money that we give. We've been around 10 years. It continues to grow. We've created 8 other programs off of that one, and now we've just opened up a resource center where veterans can come in and look for employment. But my big thing is this. When you look at a lot of the veteran organizations out there, the VFWs, the American Legions, the DAVs, they concentrate on the veteran. You don't really see too many of them who concentrate on the family as a whole, where I watched my family change. I watched my family get injured as well, and I do believe in secondary PTSD. So we're about the family as a whole. If the veteran him or herself cannot cannot work, and the spouse can, then the spouse can come in and look for employment. The family can take advantage of any and all of our programs, because it's about the family as a whole and keeping the family together. And then people don't even realize that, unless the number has changed recently, but I believe the divorce rate in the military is 80%. Wow. And now I'm a statistic of it. A wise woman once said that as a veteran, you're trained in everything and certified in nothing. And that's completely true. Because even the veterans that we deal with today, they all come in and they go, I've got 20 years as an airplane mechanic. I have 30 years as a heating and cooling, and I can't take it out into the community because everybody wants that piece of paper that says I graduated from a college to do it. When really, as a veteran, we could probably run circles around anyone in the community who does it. And then we continue to push forward with the resume writing and helping them job seek and making community connections with employers, that the best ones to hire out there are the veterans. The biggest issue we have, I think, right now, anyways, in our area, is that the younger veterans that we are dealing with, when they come back home, they don't want to be bothered because of the PTSD. They want to be left alone. They want to stay on the couch. They don't want to come out. All the same issues I had. And I can't speak badly about them for that, because I was there, I've done it. And it was only since getting the service dog that really brought me back out into the community, because you wouldn't even see me here now if it wasn't for my dog. And of course, Lynn and her service dog, and it's all about the push. And our motto was, we've got your back. Then I realized after my lawyer said, hey, we got to stop using that because the IAVA uses that. It's a registered tagline. Okay. So we changed it. But really, in the military, it's all about, we've got your back. We've got your six. It's all military. When you get out, who's got your back? I learned it wasn't my wife. Definitely wasn't her. The only ones I know that for sure 24/7 has my back is my dog. And when my kids told me, Dad, you need a dog, I thought they wanted the dog, but didn't want to clean up after it. Well, it wasn't, Dad, you need a girlfriend or a lover or a harem. It was, you need a dog. And then after I got him is when I noticed, if it worked for me, it's going to work for everyone else. And right now we have 32 veterans in the program, all with dogs, with 5 more on a waiting list to come in. So.
David Riley, thank you.
Is it on? I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was raised a military brat. My father was in the military before me, so we moved every year. There was never any doubt that I was going in the military. When I got out of school, went in 1976 into the Army, followed his path, and was in Korea, Fort Lewis, all over the United States. That got out, and for about a year I was in the National Guard, and then I went into the Coast Guard. My Coast Guard was just starting its rescue swimmer program at the time, so I was the first class of rescue swimmers to go to Pensacola, and started my duty in San Francisco, was in Clearwater, Miami, North Carolina, and then settled into Mobile at about the 17-year mark. Summer of '97, it was the first day of vacation in quite a while. I went down to Dolphin Island with my family and opened the door to the RV, and the wind hit me, and I said, I'm going to die. I'm dying. And told my wife that, and her being a typical military wife, she said, go take some aspirin, go to bed, you'll be fine. So the next morning, I woke up, I was turning colors. She brought me into the Coast Guard base, and they started an IV that saved my life. From there, I was in Brooke Army Medical for about a month, and then came back for rehab in Mobile for about a month, and then started my training with the VA. VA put me through my bachelor's and master's in computer science, and I started a company, Gulf Coast Technical Service in Mobile. But it took at about the 8-year mark, it took a while for depression to hit me, and so the chapter, DAV was there from the beginning with me. A service officer was at my bedside while I was still in the hospital, got me my benefits, and got me all squared away, but then stepped back. I had started going to chapter meetings with the DAV down in Mobile, and they saw over the space of those years me getting worse and worse with the depression, sent me to the Winter Sports Clinic in Aspen, and that's what turned me around. I shut my business down from there, and just did veterans issues from then on. As far as PTSD, I did have that. Anybody that did the job that I did, or some of the other panelists here would have that. It's just a normal response. Your body learns to cope with stress and immediate situations that require your attention a lot faster. And I think over the space of 10 years or so, I passed that on to my wife. She's probably worse than I am now with that. But the Winter Sports program turned me around. I became the department commander, rose up through the Department of Alabama, and then this past year was national commander for a year. If you don't know what the national commander does, you're kind of the face of the organization. We go all over the United States. Typically we have 30 or 40 chapters in every state, and so you're pretty busy that year, testifying before Congress and representing the DAV in all its different capacities. We really enjoyed the year, but I can honestly say that if I had not shut my business down when I did and devoted my life to veterans issues from there, I would not be here today. The depression took a while to kick in, and when it did, it went hard. And so being kind of a representative for veterans issues has really saved me also, in that I get a lot more out of what I put in. And Thank you.
Excellent. Let's give them all a round of applause. What an amazing group of people, and again, it's an honor to have you. And I have to make this comment, in looking at all the panels, we're often talking about invisible Americans, and that it's not just the invisible wounds, that all three panels are about this segment of society that we seem to overlook. And so, as we talk about some of the issues with military adjustment, who in government is doing it right? Is anybody in government doing it right? Is there any program, is there any system that has really been effective in helping folks adjust from the military? We're not saying it, and we're not going to say somebody's not doing it wrong, but are there nonprofits? I mean, your nonprofit sounds amazing. It sounds amazing because it is about households. It's about families. Are there other nonprofits or others, or again, kind of what are some of the organizations that are really doing it right that should be kind of given a shout out, if you will?
I don't know. If you look back, we started the service dog program in 2013 because we heard in October of 2013 the VA shut down the service dog program, saying they don't believe in it. They don't believe that service dogs truly help veterans. The ironic part is, if you don't believe in it, why is the VA referring their veterans to our program? Mm-hmm. I say it's because you're looking for the cheaper way out. Mm-hmm. You're looking for someone else to pay what you promised you'd give us for signing our name on that dotted line. And then that's probably the biggest issue. I'm not even going to speak for everybody, but I know for myself, and I'm sure for many of them out there, is that we put our name on that dotted line, and you promised us you would take care of us for life. And then we come back home and we're realizing the next war we're fighting is our own red tape, our own government for our benefits that you promised us. I know we've been contacted by several individuals from around the country asking, can you come, North Carolina, can you come to North Carolina and show us how to do a grassroots nonprofit and keep the money here? That's great, but I have a family back here I have to continue to feed and take care of. I would do that in a heartbeat, but I can hold my head high and those who work in my office because we've been doing this 10 years and not a dime of government subsidy. And someone made mention earlier about not needing the politicians to direct us and tell us how it goes, and when you get involved with taking their money, they tell you how you're going to spend it. 10 years, we've been doing it on our own through fundraising and donations. Every congressman and senator loves what we do, but nobody wants to get behind it with the money unless we take it to a much bigger scale that's going to involve them. Well, we don't need the congressman or senator to tell us how to do it. We're all veterans. We know how to do it. Just give us that opportunity to show you.
Well, and again, part of it is, and having actually been a government official and having looked at government, is government provides, it does a good job providing middle of the road, whether it's run a public school, whether it's and I think what I'm hearing is that there are some outstanding nonprofit organizations out there, like yours and others, that are doing incredible things. And that maybe what we need to do is this kind of conference is making this visible. And one of the things is, I've mentioned this book on influence, is that all that exists is influence, and that if you really want to make a change, you can influence anything to happen. And I think as we talk in this country about military veterans, I think this is hopefully totally opposite of the Vietnam War, where folks coming back are actually revered. They're here, they're respected. And I think maybe there's a way to use that and really get support for the organizations and design organizations that can solve some of the problems like yours. Has anyone heard of any other organizations or other things out there that, obviously Prudential and some of the corporations are doing some amazing things. Is there anything else you want to share about what Prudential's doing?
Well, Prudential, obviously does a lot of great things and really does revere veterans and has a lot of talent programs attempting to attract veterans. And I think, supporting research like my group does, that's pretty rare in corporate America. Mm-hmm. We do altruistic research to try to help employers figure out how to do things better. And I get funding for that. It's a pretty sweet gig I got going on, and I'm going to keep it. And so, again, that's a rare thing. The other thing that Prudential does allow me to do, and I've been able to explore some academic venues, because we in academia, and I do have half a foot in academia, we get to do research for the sake of learning stuff. And so that's why I partner with Penn State, and they have a veterans clearinghouse. And so what they do is they look at veterans programs and they sort of validate them, and then they put them on a website and say, this is a certified program that we've actually seen work. And so I think academia can do a lot to shed light on programs that are effective. And we need to, again, I think conferences like this are going to be vital, because this is a bipartisan issue. But we all know that it takes, it takes years and years to change public policy. And I've spent some time in Washington on disability issues, and it is bipartisan, but it all depends on it's bipartisan, but it's not. And so we, as a community, have to come together and raise awareness and do things like this and shed light on your programs and really take it into our hands. We are a capitalistic society, so that means we don't necessarily have to depend on government. So let's do this, and let's continue to have these conversations and post on social media and raise awareness.
Any other comments? Any other thoughts? David?
One of the things that we were going to talk about was that in the PTSD arena, when the Vietnam vets came back, there was recognized there was a lot of problems. And so DAV did a study in the early 70s called the Forgotten Warrior Project, where it came out that they classified from that study that PTSD was a disability. It was an actual diagnosis. And from that, we created 63 centers around the United States that were the predecessors of the vet centers. And from those, the VA took it over and gave the vet centers created them. There's over 700 of them now. And so it's a place for the vets to go to meet that's outside of VA. And I think that was working out good for the Vietnam era generation. We're still working on the Afghanistan and Iraqi generation. It's a hard nut to crack. Really.
And so as we look and we hear a lot about homeless veterans, which is, was a kind of a major issue. And one of the things, I used to be Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs, and I was at a homeless conference, and everybody was talking about the safety net. And I kind of said, I don't believe in the safety net, I believe in the safety trampoline. And I think part of the challenge is that we have an attitude of, okay, we'll keep you from being homeless. We don't do a great job in some places about that. But we're not going to help you bounce back into society. We're not going to help you kind of become all you can be. And I think part of what I'm hearing today is that, like you said, you're not broken. We're all broken. You're not any more broken than anybody else. But we need to recognize that we aren't all perfect. And so you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of my biggest problems after getting out is okay, they watch that video or they see my background and then they enable me. I mean, I felt like the people around me were enabling me instead of holding me accountable. Well, it's understandable for you to drink every day, and it's understandable for you to not contribute to society. It's okay.
Good point.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's understandable. Look what you went through. And so, I think that that's how, let me just say it, majority veterans get out. And they start looking at that, and they become the victim. And instead of sitting here saying, look, this is what I got, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to push through it, and I still have an obligation to serve my country at whatever. My contract might be over, but I still have an obligation to serve this nation, and I still need to go on, and I need to own my own. I need to be held accountable still, right? I mean, it's not, I mean, I struggle, right? I mean, there was probably from 2010 when I got out until 2000, I would say 14, 15, I was probably drinking every single night.
Wow. Oh.
Well, yeah, okay, I have PTSD, PTSD, but that doesn't give me, okay, that doesn't excuse me to go be an alcoholic. Those are two separate problems. Okay, I know what happens when I start drinking, so I need to fix my problem. And I just kept pushing them off and pushing them off. So I think that one thing is that we need to stop, we need to stop helping people survive, and we need to teach them how to live.
Excellent. Great. We hear a lot about the relationship, the relationship. I mean, you're away for 6, 8, 10 months. You come home with PTS and you do that. What kind of support systems, could be helpful to families, before it turns tragic? Any thoughts or any examples of anything that works well?
Sure. one of the largest issues during my year commander, kind of each commander gets a pet project, and I took the caregiver issue. My wife, we've been married 30 years, and there's, you know, the caregiver program for post 9/11 veterans, but still hasn't been rolled out to the rest of the population. And so we've testified to Congress on putting the issue out there and saying that it should be all veterans of all eras. You know, Vietnam veterans have the same problems as Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans. And so we're hoping that the VA is going to roll that program out to all veterans.
Could you talk a little more about that? What is the caregiver program? What happens with
right
that
now?
program?
There's a stipend, and they give you know, training, and it's a encompassing program of the VA that they kind of care for the caregivers. You know, they give them a lot of benefits, and right now it's just post 9/11 veterans that are eligible for it. So
Really? Okay.
we've been putting that out in Congress and in a lot of the outlets that it should be for all veterans of all eras.
Absolutely.
So we hopefully get some traction on that from the year.
So before I ask some more, more questions, I want to make sure we have time for your questions. So if you have a question, just please come up to either of the mics to get a chance to talk to these heroes. Sergeant.
No, so I think that, you know, to help on the family side of it, I mean, we all have to come ahead and face this, this mentality. I mean, you know, we're also focused on the veteran, but serving our country is a family business.
Yep. Yep.
Serving our country is a family business. And honestly, you know, the veteran gets all the credit, the veteran gets all this, the veteran gets all the benefits, but at the end of the day, the veteran couldn't do what they do without that dependent spouse, however you want to call it, you know, still carrying their weight, and that's the most thankless job there is in the military.
Yep.
And so, you know, with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we realized that, you know, so obviously we do a lot of hiring, we do a lot of giving the tools and understanding that, but we also started Career Spark for, you know, the spouses, the spouses of military veterans to help them gain meaningful employment as well.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a veteran here. If you mind, say your name and your service, please.
My name is Johnny Walker, and I know you're all. I'm the state adjutant for the Disabled American Veterans for the state of New Jersey. And first of all, I want to identify that there certainly is a need, and it's a very good need for the VA. In all three of those cases up there, David's, Chris, and Dakota's, VA is good at what they do. They have years and years of practice of handling medical problems that veterans have. The serious problem is getting into the VA, okay? Just like Chris said. Our main mission as the Disabled American Veterans is to provide the same quality of life for our disabled veterans and their families when they come home. And how we do that is getting them into the VA system. Just like Chris said, he came home a disabled vet, but the VA declined him. I can't tell you how many times that happens, that it's decline, decline, decline. So Chris did just like we did 5 years ago down in Cape May County, where Cape May County's politicians, they don't have a homeless problem. You know why? Because it's a tourism community. They don't want to scare people away. But you come down here and visit me, and I'll take you to the tent cities and the cardboard cities when it's 8 degrees and there's people that we take out of the woods and bring them into shelters. We started an organization 5 years ago for the same reason Chris did, to take care of emergency needs of veterans that have problems today. Can't wait 60 days, 90 days, 120 days for the VA to take care of them. We grouped together as with citizens and veterans, took money out of our own pockets until we got our 501c, got the donations in, and went through the hassle. You know, like politicians, it's a battle. But we had to do it on our own. And until we get the right politicians in the right positions, we'll make it better for everybody involved. But it's guys like Chris, guys like Dave, and guys like Dakota, they got us where we are today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I have to add, too, and that's part of why we're doing this, is that I think we, the people, Americans, have more influence than we think we do. I think as we're learning, I learned a lot today about things I didn't know, and I care about this issue. And I think if we start to speak up, we start to talk about these invisible communities, I think we can actually, and the answer aren't the politicians, the answer are really us. The answer is us doing nonprofits. The answers are Prudentials of the world. The answers are those, and I think we need to begin to think about that. And one of the things that I ask in all the panels, because I've looked at the neuroscience around mindfulness. Now, have any of you utilized mindfulness, or do you know of mindfulness for veterans? No? Okay.
Mindfulness. I'm trying to define that for me.
Yeah, and so mindfulness is basically, it's transcendental meditation has some religious connotations. Mindfulness is a secular version. And so before meetings at Google and LinkedIn and others, they're using it. But the interesting thing is that the neuroscience, and Clarissa has left, who was an expert in this, shows that doesn't matter what the trauma is, that the amygdala in the brain changes. And so part of the reason that people fight is because it's the fight or flight. If you saw a saber-toothed tiger, you didn't analyze that, you just ran. And so when that's overstimulated, what happens is you have to deal with it. And mindfulness helps you bring it back. And they've shown neurologically that. And so that as you're, and we can send you some information about that, but think about that. And there's some other things that will work. But I think we as a community need to realize that we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And I love what you said about this. We all have disabilities, if you want to call them disabilities. And so no one's perfect. And so I love what all of you are saying. So if we talk about the future, we talk about military service going into the future. If I have a 13-year-old daughter, if someone's going into the military, what would you tell them? If they're going to serve their country in the next generation, that, they're going to, what advice do you give them? How do you prepare them? What do you say to them to prep so they're better adjusted?
Well, after my experiences with the military, I would say 20 years ago, I would have told my son to run away. Do not join the military. But it's a different military now than when I joined and when I was serving. I think things are getting better. The benefits are getting better. When you get out of the military, there's more programs for you. I mean, we have our employment program also, where we put $1.4 million since 2014 on towards employing 10,000 veterans by 2018. So we're trying hard on ensuring that the programs are going to be there for the future. We're plugged into legislative initiatives to ensure that the programs that are there now stay there. And I think that the hardest thing now is to get the young vets that are leaving plugged into ensuring that those benefits are there when their children retire from the military.
Excellent. Any thoughts?
I have 2 boys. And what I didn't say earlier was that in the divorce, I got the kids, not my wife.
Interesting.
I got the house, which to me proves a lot. But my boys are 14 and 16. So the question about them joining the military comes up all the time. And people ask me all the time, if your sons want to join the military, what would you say? I guess, really, I'd be a hypocrite if I tried to talk them out of it, because why is it okay for me to do it, but not them? My 16-year-old, when I asked him, he said, absolutely not. Actually, his words were, no way in hell. And I kind of got thrown back by that, and I asked him, well, why not? And his reply was, look at you.
Wow, powerful.
I wasn't really sure how to take that.
Right.
I still am not sure how to take that. My 14-year-old, he's diehard. I think he was born with a Kevlar on his head because he insists on the haircut.
Wow.
I've cut his hair ever since he was a little baby, and he still prefers I'm the only one that cuts his hair.
Wow.
So I said, I'll cut your hair, but it's got to look like mine because it's the only haircut I know. And it's been that way his whole childhood. But he is the whole diehard. He's got his mindset. It's the Army. Lynn, who's retired, she just retired 22 years from the Air Force. Her and I go back and forth all the time. Army, Air Force, you know how that goes. but for my kids, if they want to join, I would absolutely support them on it 100%.
Excellent, excellent, great.
Yeah, the same for me. I mean, I would, if my kids came to me and said they want to join, I mean, I would be proud. I'd be proud for them to do it.
Excellent. So, Doctor, I'd like to ask you, Prudential does so much, do such wonderful things. How do we get other companies to step up? That's really the answer, as much as we beat up government all the time, but companies and big companies really need to kind of step up. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things is for Prudential to be a spokes company and really get out and talk about our success and how valuable we find our veterans and how successful all of our programs are and how everything that they bring to the table. I think studies like Prudential's allowed me to do. I actually was able to present with Penn State. We did a joint study, and we spoke to a group of 350 employers. And we talked about all of the different things that veterans bring to the table. And we talked about all of the misconceptions that employers tend to have and all of the misunderstandings that they have relative to veterans, and really how, as employers, can we make that transition as easy as possible. There were so many things I didn't think about. Just, what does business casual mean? If you're a veteran, you might not know, right? What do I need to ask for in terms of compensation? Because there's so many things that are taken care of in the military. And Jim, actually, he and I have talked quite a bit, and he said, what we tend to find is that the veteran gets out and they get a job, and they soon realize that they're not making enough money. And so for that reason, they get job number 2, and they really don't like that job. And then finally, they figure out job number 3 is the job that they wanted, and that's how they attain that getting back to the mission. And so how do we make job number 1 or job number 3? And so that's really what I think we're charged with at Prudential and my research team, is to get out and talk about all of the things that will help make that transition so much easier for veterans. Because I also learned that there are vocational counselors and there are folks who help with the transition, but it's like a 3-day seminar. And you can take it as many times as you would like, but in 3 days, you're not necessarily gonna know how to transfer your skills that you had in the military into corporate America speak. And you know what? We in corporate America have no idea what those resumes look like and how to translate into our speak. And so one of the simple recommendations one of my veterans had in my study was, why don't you have a veteran read veterans' resumes? They can translate.
Exactly.
One of the things you should probably never say to a veteran if you're a manager is, why don't you go to leadership training? One of my veterans said he was an infantry commander with 250 soldiers at his command for over 6 years. These gentlemen he's making life and death decisions on their behalf, and they're following him, and he needs manager training. Right? So I think it's about companies like Prudential getting out in these venues and getting out in employer circles to talk about how we can leverage this group of folks with incredibly unique and valuable skills and bring them into our workforce. And the other piece that, and I know I'm sort of rambling, but it's so important, I think, to make sure that we help a veteran understand their mission in our community, in our society, and just things that I hadn't thought of. Right? So I would ask a veteran, what's the best thing about civilian work? And they would say, nobody died on my watch. I don't have to worry about that. One of the women said, I can wear whatever shoes I want. I get to wear makeup. I can do my hair. What's the hardest thing? Not having that camaraderie, not having that mission. So it's really a double-edged sword. So imagine that. You get up every morning and you know that it's life and death. And then you enter corporate America. What's my mission? And so it's really our responsibility in corporate America to help veterans understand where they fit into the mission and the vision, and to help them contribute to the community.
Great, thank you. Sergeant.
Yeah, I mean, look, 6 years ago, I was saying, hey, look, the companies need to understand this. I'm telling you, from 6 years ago to today, I mean, companies like Prudential, companies like Capital One, companies like USA. I mean, I can go down the list and tell you who's the real deal, right? So the companies are out there, and they do have to make some changes. But I'm going to tell you where we really need to focus is we really need to focus that the veterans are going to have to own it. They're going to have to sit here and they're going to have to come out and make a better product. You know what I mean? Look, they're already great.
Right.
But look, we don't go to Afghanistan. We didn't go to Afghanistan. Anytime we went to Afghanistan, Iraq, or another country to go fight, guess what we did? We learned about their culture. We educated ourselves before we went over there. If a civilian walks on our military base, we expect them to respect their culture. So when we get out of the military, we need to learn about the civilian culture. And we need to educate ourselves. So the military needs to sit here and say, hey, look, I mean, I walked around. I was that veteran. I got out. I wanted everybody else to change for me. I wanted everybody else to change for me. I served this country, so you can change for me. Now, I'm not changing. I fought for this country. I have more skin in the game on behalf of this country than any of you all. So guess what? You owe me. Guess what? That ain't it. That ain't it. So I think that the first thing that we got to do is the veterans, the service members need to look in the mirror. And they need to start there. And then they need to come out with a better product. They need to come out and say, hey, look, I'm going to own my transition. It is my mission. The transition is my mission. When we have a mission in the military, we don't look at anybody else to do it for us. So I think that's probably one of the things that's a little tough love to do it, right? And to be able to look, the resources are out there. Here's what I'll tell you the difference is. Today, every resource that you need to succeed is out there. Plenty of them. Every resource you need to be successful is out there. The companies are there. I guarantee Prudential, how many job openings you got right now you hire veterans, right? 800.
800. Wow.
800.
Wow.
So if I go down the list and I bet I could go through 5 to 6 companies. There's 250,000 service members getting out.
Wow.
And I bet you there's more job openings than there is. Look, the demand's there. We need the supply.
Excellent. Excellent.
I don't even know how to follow. I think you looked at my notes. I'm just going to pass this on to him. I'm done.
I think you wrapped it up there. I'll stop there.
So let me ask this question that I've often wondered. How do we honor, we see a veteran, we're in the train station and the bus stop. Thank you for your service. Is that, I've heard that's patronizing, how do you honor, what do you say to someone that, you just not say anything, treat them like everybody else? Do you say something? What do you think?
I don't know, because I will say this much. I always feel awkward when people come up and say thank you for your service.
Right, okay.
Even as a Purple Heart recipient, people go, oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations on what? So I don't always know how to take that. What's even worse than that, in my opinion, is there's a growing, I don't even know how to, women are growing in the military, okay? More so than they ever have been. And I was just in Manhattan last night handling stuff in Manhattan for another event that I had to speak at, and the issue came up about growing females in the military, and how do you feel about women being in the military? And I kind of teeter on the fence with it. I had women in my unit, and I would get back in and fight with the best of them. And then you have some women that it was too overwhelming for them. But I made an example, Lynn and I, for example, again, I would have an Army t-shirt on, Army hat, and my dog, who has an Army vest on him. And she'll have an Air Force shirt with an Air Force hat, and her dog that has an Air Force vest on him. And people totally act like they don't even see her and walk in front of her and say, to me, thank you for your service.
Interesting.
I'm like, wow. What about her? But she says the same, just say thank you and don't acknowledge the fact that I'm in the military.
Right.
But I can't, because it's not that you too served. Even though it's awkward, I still don't like being thanked. I did it because I wanted to do it. But if it makes you feel better to say thank you, all right, I'll take it. Yeah.
That's an honest answer.
Help me out here.
So let me ask you this. So there have been, the beauty of the military is the camaraderie, the training you get, the combat is obviously the worst part of it. So there have been some thoughts about national service, that you give young people, not necessarily in the military, but you give people a chance to to at 18 that everybody either serves as a volunteer in nonprofits or joins the military, or thoughts about that? Good, bad, otherwise? What do you think?
I think we have the best military out there because it's a voluntary service.
Right,
now.
right.
Yeah, going back to the draft or anything
Right.
like that, I don't see that working. And you know, women will be 1 in 5 of our force by 2020. So, things are changing. It's going to be different out there. And, but I don't think that mandatory service is the way to go in the military.
No, if you want to serve, you'll serve.
Good. Just, and again, this is a chance to ask some questions that people don't get a chance to ask the heroes. Some would say that a disproportionate number of, and I would say that the military has helped a lot of people turn their lives around. A lot of people I know have turned a lot of my relatives. That there are a disproportionate number of people who are poor, underprivileged, or in the military. Now it often helps. His thoughts of that, and that's why people justify. Again, I'm not a believer in requiring people to do that. But comments on that, just comments on that, because people have those questions, and is that true, false? What do you think?
Look, the military's not gonna. The military's gonna be what you make of it. You can't sit here and say that you come from somewhere, and that's it makes the military great. Is guess what? You come there, and no matter where you come from in life, no matter what state, no matter what you look like, no matter what your skin color is, no matter what religion you are, no matter if you're a male or a female, the standard's the standard, and you are judged based off your performance, not by anything else. Which is, I think, something America could really take to heart. So I don't think, I think no matter what, I think whether somebody joins the military or whether they find a way to get education, look, if they're going to be successful, they're going to be successful. Yeah. Do I think that the military sometimes is a great tool? Absolutely. There's no telling where I would be if I hadn't gone.
Excellent. Well, I think we're at time, and this is an amazing panel with amazing people. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay. Thank you. Good.
Good afternoon, panelists. My name is Paul Lazaro. I'm the Director for Veteran Affairs here at Rutgers University Newark. A fellow veteran, fellow Purple Heart recipient, Iraqi freedom twice.
Wait, are we in trouble right now? Just checking. You got that look like we're done.
And my question comes more from higher education. So Rutgers, across the 3 campuses, I have 2 counterparts, one in New Brunswick, one in Camden. Combined, we're ranked number 2 by the Military Times as best for vets in the nation as a 4-year school. And my question comes from that aspect. I have 391 students, a combination of veterans, service members, dependents, ROTC cadets. As an institution, how can my office best assist your efforts in terms of finding employment, transitioning, helping families, community service organizations? What advice would you have for Rutgers University?
Good question.
Yeah. I would say realistic expectations, right? Basically giving them straight talk. There's no more of this white picket fence dream of you go to college and you're going to get a better job. I would say, I'm going to speak on people who, I'm going to say service members getting out of the military. I would say give them a realistic expectation. Them coming out and going to, and people are probably going to beat me down because of this, but I think that people getting out of the service and going to college for 4 years and not having a goal at the end of it of where they want to be and just going to college for 4 years is kind of like getting on an airplane without a destination.
Excellent. Any other comments?
Let me ask you a question. Here at the college, here at the college, do you have anything set aside that is strictly for the veteran, him or herself? Meaning, we've had 2 colleges reach out to us to help them develop a veterans-only room, if you will, almost like a quiet room. Because veterans dealing with PTSD, not liking large crowds or a lot of the noise or the hypervigilance. So there's a spot on campus that you need a certain card to get into that only veterans can go into. It's soft lighting, there's recliners in there, there's a flat screen, coffee table, and it's like home away from home where you could just go in there, hang out with other veterans who get it, and just kind of chill, if you will.
And I would ask,
We do.
I would ask the same question. Do you have a student veteran organization here on campus?
We have both. We have the upstairs down the hall from my office, we have the Student Veteran Lounge, which all my students get swipe access to. My office is always open to them. And similar facilities exist in New Brunswick and Camden at those campuses as well.
Leading the way.
Forget I asked.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, this has been a wonderful panel. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Now to offer closing remarks is my good friend Vic Nichols, the publisher and CEO of PTSDJournal. And he's going to come up and make some remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess my most important remark is going to say thank you for everybody who came today, for everybody on our panel, for everybody who's in the room now. What we did today together is embarked on something that is, I'm going to say, groundbreaking, not just for PTSDJournal and not just for PTSD and communication, but what we're trying to do here with the Invisible Wounds Conference is to take this nationally. This is the first one, so everyone in this room, this was the inaugural event, okay? So know that you were here for the first one. We're going to take this nationally. And what we also did here, which you may have noticed, is we taped everything. Because not just the people in this room were we interested in sharing this information with, we want to share this information with the world. We want to make sure that we get this out on social media. We want to push it out to other networks. We want to make sure that we build collaboration, which is really what this whole effort is about. So when somebody asks me, Vic, what is it that you're really trying to do with the Invisible Wounds Conference or with PTSDJournal? What we're really trying to do is act as the LexisNexis for this conversation on a national and global level. We also understand that it's much, much bigger than us and this group. So we want to be the catalyst to unify that voice, to bring these people together from all over and make sure that we were the spark, the catalyst to move this forward. That's really what this is all about. And I think it started today. We were here last night until 11 o'clock at night, trying to make everything work and the screens work and everything like that. That's logistics. What this is really about is what's happening right here, right now. You people in this room who've taken the time to share, learn, and understand what it is that we're trying to do here and nationally and globally. So I want to say thank you to everyone who came, and I think you're going to say a couple of things before I leave. But I want to say thank you to everybody. Unlike me, usually I try to, I talk, so I'm going to keep this one short. I'm just going to say thank you very much for being here, and hopefully we will see you again right here again next year. We will be doing other ones before next year, but we're going to always make this an annual event.
And just finally, we have some gift bags for you as you go out. Make sure that you pick up your gift bags. Please make one last stop at our vendors and reach out to Prudential and some of our other vendors. And just want to thank you all for staying the whole time. This is just the beginning of the conversation, so good luck. And we're going to make a difference together. Take care. Yep. Okay, and there's a VIP reception. Starting at 4, Vic, right? At 4? Right now. We'll start right now. Okay, the VIP reception right now. And which room? Okay, go straight back, those in the VIP reception. And again, thank you all very much. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming.